ahead and begin. Apologies for the delay here. Maghrib actually comes in right at 7:30 here in Northern California where we are. So we just had to pray. Alhamdulillah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just introduce ourselves, and then we'll dive in, inshallah. I just want to make sure we are good to go. Brother Sharif over at Civic. I think we're good. Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for joining. My name is Shariar, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Success Company. We are an organization that started about 7 years ago, and our goal really is to help students and families navigate the complexities of the college admissions process. The reason we started this organization is growing up, both me and Sadia, who will introduce herself in a second, we had to really navigate this entire process on our own, right? How do we get into college? What are the different aspects of the high school process? How do we think about SAT? How do we think about extracurriculars? How do we go about applying for internships? And then how do we actually go about applying for college? Because our parents had not gone through that same process here. So after graduating, we said, hey, this could be a good way to give back to the community. So we started doing workshops that back in those days, we could do stuff in person. So we started doing workshops at different masajid here in the Bay Area. And then, alhamdulillah, from there, continued to grow and continue to work with more and more masajid. And then we also started to have families that wanted to work with us one-on-one. So we started offering coaching and courses. And now we're here and we're doing, the topic for today is going to be on how do you get into your dream college. And I'll go ahead and let Sadia introduce herself.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having us. Similar to Shariar, I was actually among the first in my family to apply to college. My parents are from Pakistan. And it was just a really stressful process because my parents weren't really sure how best to guide me. And so we really had to kind of create the process. And they call me their guinea pigs. So some of those parents who are helping their students for the first time might sound familiar. I'm just really passionate about making college accessible to young people, especially my own immigrant community. And so that's a little bit about me. I graduated from UC Berkeley. I studied social welfare. I've worked in consulting and finance. I currently work in tech right now. And I'm working on building a product for my job, which is all about recruiting and admissions. So for my job, I talk to admissions directors about what they're looking for, how they evaluate students, what are the inner workings of a university admission system and their criteria. And my goal is to offer all of that information to you. So that's a little bit about me. And why don't we go ahead and get started? All right, so what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about a couple of things. So the first piece is what's on everyone's mind. What are the big changes in university admissions thanks to COVID-19? And inshallah, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but the process for applying to college, the expectations have fundamentally changed. And we're probably going to be seeing those changes for the next 2 to 3 application cycles, not just the one that passed. So what are some things you need to know as a family as you adapt? Second is, what is your college strategy? Like, how do you think about creating a theme, setting those goals? When is too early to be thinking about college? And if you have any of those questions, you'll probably realize very soon that it's never too early to start thinking about college. Third is, what are colleges even looking for, right? Like, how do I think about academics and classes and the grades I need to get? How do I think about the standardized tests that need to be taken, if they need to be taken, how they need to be taken with the shifting landscape? What are extracurriculars? How do I choose the right one for me? How do I choose the right one for my student? And then, of course, we're going to talk you through the actual college admissions process. So what to expect when you're filling out those applications, when they're due, all of that good stuff. I'm going to pass it over to Shayar, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the implications of COVID-19 and what's top of mind for universities today when they think about their applicants.
All right, awesome. So as if college admissions was not already a stressful enough process in a normal year, in this year and the next couple of years, it's very, very complex given the COVID-19 situation. So it's very normal for students, families, parents, everyone to be a little bit extra stressed out because you're probably wondering, what do I do with regards to my standardized tests? How do I navigate extracurricular activities? How do I even participate in clubs and how do I focus in school? How do I get the same type of grades I could have gotten if I was doing things in person? Now you're doing everything on Zoom. These are totally normal questions, and don't worry. the most important aspect of this is that you are adapting, that you are flexible, because colleges are going to be approaching this admission cycle and the admission cycle for the next couple of years, next 2 to 3 years, with unprecedented flexibility. And why is that? It's because they also have not gone through a major pandemic like we're facing right now. And colleges have also not had to admit students while not taking their SAT, and also admit students while not having the same level of resume expectations that they might normally have. So they are going to be approaching this admission cycle with unprecedented flexibility, and expect that for the next couple of years. So what does that mean for you? For you, that means, as if you're a student or if you're the parent of a student, it means that you have to just be able to show how you were flexible in the time that you are in, right? So what did you do with the extra time that you had? How did you respond to this COVID-19 situation? How did you go about navigating high school? So those are a couple of things. And I think if Sadia, if you could just switch to the next slide, that would be great. Let me know. Yeah. Great. So what are colleges kind of looking for in this specific time that we're in? They are really looking for a human being that has potential, not just someone who has the numbers. So one of the things that this COVID-19 situation is going to show colleges is, okay, how does somebody adapt? What type of flexibility do they have? And then what type of potential do they show based on how they handled this situation? One of the ways that colleges define this type of potential is they are going to look at, how is this human being adapting to life's challenges? You'd be surprised if sometimes, we think like we think the college application process is all about GPA, and it's all about your standardized test scores, and it's all about your resume. But then when you actually get to the essay part of the college application, they're asking you like these questions like, tell me about your biggest challenge you've ever had in life. How did you go about navigating it? What did you learn from it? Like fairly deep questions, like stuff that you're like, okay, wow, I've only had so many years of experience in life, and you want me to answer at this level of depth for this type of question. Well, if you have learned anything at all from your experiences, colleges want to know that, because one of the ways they tell how somebody is going to be successful later in life, and if they will bring a good reputation to that college, if they'll perform well in that college, is not just on the academics and the kind of scorecard. It's based on that person's approach to how they handle difficult situations in high school. It shows them, okay, is this person a leader? Is this person capable of managing challenges? Can this person handle what life throws at them? And if they can, most likely they are going to be a good fit. And of course, they need to also check some of these other boxes. So all that to say, and I think that in the next slide, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but all that to say really that the way you respond to impact is absolutely critical. If you are still working hard in this COVID situation, if you are still going out there and finding creative ways to help, finding ways to engage with your community, finding ways to use your time wisely, inshallah, you're going to be in a good state. You're going to have different types of students. You might have a student who uses this extra time to start a local donation drive for PPE, or is finding ways to help people book vaccine appointments or whatever it is that you might be doing. And you might have a student in the same class who is using all of that extra time to just scroll on TikTok and Netflix and whatnot. So that's going to be obviously two different types of profiles, two different types of applications. And colleges would prefer, every time they're going to prefer the former versus the latter. So that's just something to keep in mind. Use this time that you have wisely, and that will help you in the college admission process.
Sorry about that. I was trying to speak while I was on mute. So we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about what is the college application process? Why is it important? When should you start thinking about it? So the college application process is a culmination of all of the work that you have been doing for 3.5 years. Most students apply in the fall of their senior year. Oftentimes we have parents come to us and say, oh, my student's in 9th grade or 10th grade. I think it's too early to think about college. That's absolutely not the case. The students who are getting into the best schools are thinking about college the moment they set foot on their high school campus, which means that you should be thinking about college as soon as you finish middle school and start planning for high school. And the reason that's important is that colleges want to see what you've been doing for the past 3.5 years. They want to evaluate your extracurriculars. They want to evaluate your grades. They want to see, have you improved? And you can't really do that if you're not able to plan far enough in advance. So that's one thing to think about. If you are in your 8th, 9th, 10th grade, it's not too late start thinking about college right now. And really, it's an opportunity to highlight all of the amazing things that you've done. And being able to have a vision of where you'd like to be helps you plan what you'd like to do and how you plan on getting there. So there are really 4 core pieces of this process. First are, no surprise, your academics. So this is both including the classes that you take and how tough they are and how you perform in them. Then there are the standardized tests, which are the SAT and the ACT. Now, these standardized tests this past year for most schools were waived. And that's because most of these testing centers were just canceling their test dates. It was really, really hard to even take the test. Obviously, we were in the middle of a crisis. Everybody was trying to figure out how to react. But very possible that they will continue to open. I have heard from admissions directors of schools that say that they are test optional directly say that, yeah, we're test optional, but like if a student submits a score and they do really well on that score, it does help them. So that's just something for you to be thinking about. Unless a school is completely test blind, which means they're not even going to look at your SAT score, if you're able to take the test, it's still a good idea. And if you are in 8th or 9th grade, it's very possible that by the time you apply to college, we will be, inshallah, out of the pandemic. And so this is definitely something you should be planning for. If you're planning on applying in the fall, it's probably a little bit less likely. But again, keep what I said earlier in mind. Then there are your extracurricular activities. And these are all the things that you do outside of the classroom. So these are the clubs, the jobs that you have, the summer programs that you do, the internships that you hold. This is the volunteer work that you do. You know, your work in the Muslim community also counts. So if you volunteer at your masjid, that's a good example. This is everything that you do outside of school, and all of this matters. And this is really important for parents to realize, because back in many of the countries that our parents come from, your admission into college is really based on your grades. And here in the United States and in many other Western countries, they practice what is called holistic admissions, which is that they look at the entire application of an applicant. They look at their life, they look at where they come from, what challenges they've had to overcome, how they spent their time outside of the classroom. And so grades are important, and they're one part of the application, but your extracurriculars are also just as important. And then of course there are the college essays. Now, when you actually submit your application, you will be expected to write essays on a variety of topics, such as your leadership, what you've done to give back to your community, whether you have a talent or skill you'd like to talk about, why you want to choose the school that you're applying to. And so being able to really cultivate some of these fundamental skills is really, really important for students to be prepared for that moment. Now, we work with students one-on-one when it comes to college essays. And unfortunately, what we see often are students come to us just to work on their essays, and they're just unable to write because they don't have the fundamental skills of being able to think critically, be creative, brainstorm, outline, and write essays. So this is something you can start to sharpen from an early age. It's only going to benefit you. So let's talk a little bit about how to think about a college application strategy. Now, before you start looking at specific colleges, before you start deciding what major you want to be, or if you want to be engineering, you don't really even know what that means, there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind. The first is that you should have an overarching story or a strategy of what you want to accomplish, right? So that means that have a goal in mind, and then make sure that all the different steps that you take align with that goal. So if you are a freshman or you're a sophomore, you should start looking at schools early, and you should start to think about, what do you really want out of the college that you want to go to? And a way to better understand this is to look at the culture of the schools and also their values. You can understand some of this on their website, but let's be honest, people are really good at marketing. So it's a really good idea to see if you can speak to students who have been to that campus, if you can maybe read reviews on different boards, if you can have conversations through your network, and visiting the campus is also a really good idea. So that's something to keep in mind. Other cultures and values that might be important. Since we're in a Muslim space here, I see a lot of Muslim students struggle when they get to a university and campuses. It's maybe predominantly white. They feel a lot of different pressures, like it's hard to fit in. They don't really find a community. And because you're going to be at this college for 2 to 4 years, depending on whether you're a direct applicant or a transfer applicant, you really want to make sure that this place feels like home. And so these things are really, really important to think about. The next thing you want to think about is, what do you want to get out of your college experience, right? Like, do you want to go to grad school? Do you want to go to a professional school? Do you want to get a job? Is it really important for you to grow particular skills? Are there particular creative energies that you want to be able to develop? And based on those, your college selection should reflect that. And that's really what we do when we help our students make their decisions for college applications. And then lastly, ask yourself some critical questions about, what does it really mean to study pre-med or pre-law or pre-engineering or computer science, right? Like, ask yourself, what major do I even want to do? And it's important to think about these things early, because these majors are quite competitive to get into. And when colleges are looking to see whether they will admit you, they want to see, have the steps that you have taken, have your activities, your classes reflected what it is that you want to study. So say you want to be a pre-med student, but you've not done a single activity that demonstrates your interest in medicine or research or biology or science. They're not really going to be too excited about your application versus a student that has done those things. So understand what it takes. And then a couple of things to know, I get students who sometimes tell me, well, I'm a pre-med major. There's no such thing as a pre-med major. You can really major in anything and go to medical school. You can major in anything and go to law school. But there are a number of standardized tests that you have to take and particular classes that you have to take, but that doesn't preclude you from choosing whatever it is that you'd like. So remember, college is an opportunity for you to think creatively, for you to cultivate your intellectual curiosity. So don't limit yourself with these predefined ideas of what it is that you should study, unless you're very, very passionate about that. All right, I'll pass it to Sharyar to talk a little bit about the academic roadmap.
All right, great. So as Sadi was mentioning, once you have your strategy down, then you have to start honing in on specific areas. And this roadmap is really, really important because it helps you plan out what you are going to be focusing on for the next 3 to 4 years. We usually start working with students ideally in 9th grade or in 10th grade, and we help them map out. And many of the courses that we offered, and we'll be talking about that a little bit shortly, we help them map out, hey, what classes are you going to take? How do you make sure you fulfill your requirements? What AP classes are you going to take? What honors classes are you going to take? Is this class the same as, is an AP class, like how is an AP class different compared to a regular class? So we help them understand those details and then actually develop this entire roadmap. So a couple of things to keep in mind. First is with weighted classes. So you have 2 types of weighted classes, okay, that factor into your GPA. You have what are called advanced placement classes or AP classes, and then you have honors classes. And then, of course, regular classes. Regular classes, they give you a weight of 4 for an A, 3 for a B, 2 for a C, and so on. AP classes give you a weight for 5 for an A, 4 for a B, 3 for a C. And honors classes, same thing, 5 for an A, 4 for a B, 3 for a C. 5 for an A, 4 for a B, 3 for a C, and so on. So if you get all A's in it and you take all AP classes, you get a 5.0 GPA, which is an amazing GPA. If you take half AP, half regular, you get all A's, you get a 4.5, right? And if you take all APs and you get all B's, you get a 4.0. Still a very good GPA, but not a good look to get all B's though. So it's important to have a strategy when you are choosing your classes. Don't just take stuff like, oh, I like this sounds interesting. That's important. What you're interested in is first and foremost consideration to keep in mind. But from there, can I handle the workload? What are the easiest AP classes? What are the hardest honors classes and AP classes? How do I balance my regular classes with my honors classes? You actually have a strategy for your entire 4 years. So sophomore year, I'm taking honors chemistry, and I can maybe supplement that with honors by algebra. But junior year, I'm going to take AP biology, and I'm going to supplement that with AP US history. And I might take honors trigonometry, but I'm not going to take, another 2 or 3 APs because it might get too hard for me to manage. So you have to have a strategy to plan that out. The other thing is to make sure you're meeting all of your A through G requirements, which are required for state schools in California. Generally speaking, if you go to a public school, they'll make sure you're meeting these requirements. But if you're homeschooled or you're taking any alternative routes, you have to make sure you look up A through G requirements and make sure your classes are fulfilling those requirements. That you can speak to your counselor for further details. And then lastly, you want your academic roadmap to reflect upward growth and upward trajectory. You struggled freshman year, okay, you got to improve sophomore year, improve junior year, and so on. You don't want to see a decline. Ideally, you're doing well the whole time, but otherwise you want to see a growth. And so once you have your grades down, then you move on to the SATs. Now, the standardized tests, and if we could just move to the next slide, the standardized tests are also an important ingredient. As Sadia mentioned, in COVID, yes, there is a kind of an optional aspect to these, but pretty soon colleges are going to resume standardized tests just because they've been doing it for so long. They're not about to change their standard immediately. Again, it's all about planning here. Standardized tests are not meant to be crammed. They're not meant to be taken when you study for just 1 or 2 months before and then you expect to do well. They're meant to be studied for 1 or 2 years, for a period of over 1 or 2 years. So you want to start prepping for these tests early. What other standardized tests you have to take? You'll have to take either the SAT or the ACT. You can pick. Popular question we get is, what is the difference between the two? The SAT, they're both tests on how to take tests. They're really not actually testing intelligence, but the colleges still require them. SAT is a bit more focused on like critical reading. ACT is a bit more focused on reading, math, and critical thinking with regards to your analytical capabilities. Otherwise, they both have math components, as I mentioned as well. So I would recommend early 9th grade, you take a practice test of both the SAT and ACT, see how you do, see which one you like, and then just continue pursuing further. So then from there, what you want to do is early 9th grade, you want to buy a practice book for either the SAT or the ACT. You want to start prepping. You order a book on Amazon, you start prepping. These books are like this thick, 1,000, 2,000 pages, and you start to do 5 pages a day. And you up that to 20 pages or 10 pages a day. Then want to target 20 pages a week when you're starting off, and then you slowly increase. What you do is every couple of months you increase the amount that you're studying. By 10th grade, you should be doing regularly at least half a chapter in those books. So like call it 20 or so pages a day. You're reviewing that, and then you also begin taking practice exams. These are 4-hour-long exams. They're just like the real thing. You take them though at your own house. You just take a practice test. So you start to take practice tests in late 9th grade or early 10th grade. You do it, let's call it once a month or once every other week. Slowly start to increase it until you're doing a practice test every week. So this is the path to self-study. It requires discipline and requires you kind of managing how much you're going to do every day and how much you're going to do every week. And then by late sophomore year or junior year, you actually take the SAT or the ACT, you go and you sit for the exam. And if you don't do well, you go and you take the exam again, either late junior year or early senior year. And it's all about consistency. It's all about studying early on. And it's all about giving yourself enough time to retake it if you end up wanting to retake the test. Lastly, people regularly ask us about these really expensive college or really expensive SAT prep courses. Look, those are good if you want to do them, but they're not at all necessary. Like if you have discipline, you can do this yourself. You do not need to enroll in fancy tutoring or fancy course. But if you don't have discipline, you either teach yourself the discipline or you're basically paying somebody to make sure you're on top of it. And that's totally fine. But just know that many people have done exceptionally well in these exams, just studying by themselves. Many people have taken the course and still not done too well because they never really studied themselves. So you have to be able to study yourself no matter what. So now we'll move on a little bit and Sadia will talk about extracurriculars.
Okay, the juicy stuff. I love this topic. And I love this topic because it's just not talked about enough and it makes the entire difference. Colleges want to see that you have actually demonstrated interest in whatever it is that you want to study. And we know that it's getting more competitive. So it's important for you to start thinking about this as early as possible. As you think about evaluating what extracurriculars or leadership activities you want to do, I would encourage you to think about these few things. So first is that your extracurriculars should really be grounded in your personality, your values, and your goals. And so this means that there is no such thing as one extracurricular that is good for everybody. So for example, you can't just say, speech and debate is the thing that everybody should do if you want to get into college. That's definitely not the case. This is going to be different for everybody. Some students are really into sports. That's really important to them. Some students are into volunteering and service. Some students are into some, creative work, right? Like maybe they're into like making music or playing an instrument, for example, or practicing some other kind of fine art. There are some students who are very, maybe they do want to do speech and debate. So it really just depends on what you like to do. So parents that are here on the call, please don't make your kid do something that they absolutely don't like to do. And students on the call, be open to trying new things. So what I'm saying is not, like, oh, your parents can't force you to do anything. But what I am saying is it's important to try, because you'll never learn anything new about yourself if you don't put yourself out there. But if you try something and if you realize it's really not for you and that's not really where you want to grow, then that's okay too. So remember that is the first piece to think about when you're selecting your extracurriculars. The second is that colleges want to see that you have a commitment and a depth to your activities. And what this means is that you're not just doing a little bit of this or a little bit of that. You have 700 volunteer hours, but they're all with random organizations. There's no consistent story. That's not what they want to see. They want to see that you really enjoy doing something and you have built that skill in a variety of ways. So for example, say you studied the Quran at the masjid, say you have memorized the Quran, and now you teach the Quran, and now you are like learning to speak Arabic and teach Arabic, right? These are related things in the same arena. But it really demonstrates that this is a genuine interest for yours. The second way you can do that is by showing leadership and personal growth within your roles. So what this could look like is, as a freshman, you join a club, you're a part of that club, and then the next year you are a secretary or a treasurer. The year after that, you become the vice president or the president. And then the year after that, you're an advisor for the club, right? So it shows that you were committed, you stuck to that club, and then you actually grew within that club as well too. And I'm just using the club as a proxy. This can also be for any kind of organization. So basically what I'm trying to say is that you take on increasing levels of responsibility and of leadership. So that's something that looks really good to colleges. Colleges also want to know about your unique experiences. So if you have traveled, if you are a student worker, I worked throughout high school. If that's something that you are doing to support your family, that's something that colleges want to know about. If you have attended particular workshops that have been interesting, if you have maybe traveled with your family and chosen that time to go and give back in that particular community. So an example of some things our students have done, they've taught English when they travel back to their country in Africa or their country in Asia. Our students have interned at hospitals, and volunteered there. So, if you are planning on traveling, which, inshallah, we can all start traveling again. But, if you do spend summers abroad, think about how you can use that time in a really productive and constructive way. They want to see your passion. They really want to see it shine, because ultimately you're going to have to talk about it. And it is very, very clear when someone is not excited about what they're writing about. And then lastly, they want to see intellectual curiosity. So this is what I mentioned earlier. They want to see you take risks. They want to see you try new things. They want to see you ask tough questions and engage with tough concepts. And you can do that all through your extracurriculars. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what does it actually take to apply to college. So there are obviously many ways to apply to college. There's many systems that you can apply to, but we're going to be talking about the UC application, and we're going to be talking about the common application. I think for the common application, there are over 900 schools or something that use it. So it's very, very common. So the first thing is that the UC application is one application that goes to all 9 undergraduate programs in the University of California system. There are 10 campuses in the University of California system, the UC system, and one of them is just a grad school program, UCSF. So for students who are applying to college as freshmen or transfers, there are 9 schools that you have the choice of. The application is due November 30th. The SAT/ACT is required usually, but for this past year and until 2024, the UC is test blind. So this means that they're not even going to evaluate your SAT or ACT score. And then if you are applying to particular technical majors like computer science or engineering, they often recommend that you take the math and the science subject test. So subject tests are basically like mini SATs. They're smaller standardized tests that are completely on a particular topic. So you could take a subject test in a language or in history or in a science. And so for engineering or computer science related majors, you want to be thinking about taking 2 if possible. Then there's the application. The application is obviously a compilation of the classes you've taken, talking about the activities that you've done, any jobs that you've held, any awards that you have. And it's also the place where you're going to be selecting your major. So now this is something that's important to note. Most students really, really stress out about this part, about this piece. For the majority of majors that you will be selecting, anything that you check the box on the application is really just an intended major. It just means that you're making the intention to apply to study that. So majors that are examples of majors that go in this category are Arabic, history, biology, anatomy. There are a number of like majors that fall into this, like political science, like a number of majors that fall into this bucket called the College of Letters and Science. It's called like variations of that. But now the other portion, there is a set number of majors that are very specific to a school on campus. Now, these are really like competitive programs. So if you're applying to any kind of engineering major, it's important to keep this in mind. If you check that box on the application, that means that your application will go directly to the engineering school. And if you don't get into that school, you are not going to get into that university. I'll say that one more time. If you check a box of a particular school and you don't get into that school, you won't get into that university, period. It's not like you'll be able to go and just choose a different major. So just be really careful about how you make selections on your application. And then lastly, the University of California has what they call 8 personal insight questions. And now I mentioned this earlier. These are questions that are 350 words or less. You have an option to choose from 8. You have to choose 4. And then they ask you about your creative side, your talents, how you've made your community a better place, why you're a good applicant for the UC system, like what's like the most like difficult like obstacle you've had to overcome, and a number of other things. And so it's important to know what they're going to ask you so that you can start to prepare and like construct your activities and construct your portfolio in a way to be able to answer those questions. And then really quickly, we're going to talk about the Common Application. The Common Application is essentially a centralized application where you make an account on commonapp.org. And then what you do is you can actually search and add schools. So you make an application, you fill out that information, then you say, I want to apply to Brown University. I want to apply to University of Chicago. I want to apply to USC. I want to apply to Santa Clara University. And then your application gets routed to those universities. So that's something to keep in mind. You can go ahead and anybody can make an application. I can make an application today. So if you're interested in what that looks like, I would recommend that you do that. For the Common Application itself, you actually have the option to choose from 7 prompts, and you just have to choose one. And this is a more long form essay. So it's about 650 words, or close to double the UC application. And then you have to remember that for most schools, that's not the only essay that you have to complete. You actually have to complete a number of other essays. And these are called supplemental questions. And your supplemental questions answer things like, why do you want to go to this school? Or why do you want to study this particular major at our school? So if you're applying to any private schools, this can very quickly get out of hand. Our students apply to a number of schools, but their essays that they complete can range anywhere from like 10 to 50. So this is not the kind of thing you want to think about the weekend before it's due. This is the kind of thing that we start getting calls about in February and March of the year, and students begin working on their essays with us in June. So if you are applying this fall, definitely be sure to start soon. So just to round things out before we kind of transition and tell you guys a little bit more, a couple of things to really keep in mind is that first, preparing for college is a stressful experience. So if you are a parent of a student applying for the first time, you feel kind of lost, or maybe you didn't go to school here, and that's, you want to support your student, you want to help them get into college. That's why you're here at a webinar at 8 p.m. on a Friday. We understand, and we've been there, and we want to support you through that process. So just remember that you can support your child successfully through this process. It just takes a little bit of planning and preparation to be able to succeed. The second is to really find balance between your personal and your academic development. So we are not the kind of college coaches that will say that college is the end all be all, and that, the school that you go to or the institution you get your degree from is like defines like your worth. Like all of that is baloney. Like truly, like our life is precious, and it's really important to make sure that we're giving it our all and working toward excellence, doing everything with ihsan, and taking care of our body and taking care of our mental health and taking care of our spiritual life as well. And then, of course, there are tons and tons of resources available to the point where it's a little bit overwhelming to know what to believe. But the internet is here for you to use, so please do use it. We also share a ton of free resources, tips, videos, strategies, secrets, myths, etc. across our platforms. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. And so please definitely check us out and give us a follow there. And also, like, we want to be really accessible. So like, we'd love to just share our personal email address. If you have particular questions, we will definitely take questions here as well too. But this is my email if you'd like to reach out. So I'm going to turn over to Sharyar to talk a little bit about Dream College.
All right, great. So hopefully everybody has gotten a good understanding of the different components of the college admissions process, the different components of the high school process. It can be overwhelming, but if you plan appropriately, if you have a strategy in mind and you really develop a crisp roadmap, you can really not only crush it in high school, but inshallah, you can get into your dream college. And so as Sadia mentioned, we've been working with students and families for the last 7 years. Alhamdulillah, we've coached hundreds of students, helped more broadly thousands of families navigate this process. And so we have taken all that information, plus all of our research and all of our work, and tried to distill it into like a really cream of the cream type of course that we are focused on giving you and the students what they need in about 8 weeks of live teaching on how to get into your dream college in detail. So if you can go to the next slide. I think there's some, yeah. All right, so Dream College it's an 8-week live coaching course. And the goal is to really help students learn all the aspects of the high school process. So we're gonna cover in about 6 to 7 modules. We're gonna cover the foundational habits and the mindset that you need in order to succeed in high school and succeed in college and then succeed in your career. The classes you need to take, so we will actually work with you to develop this roadmap, the classes you need to take to distinguish yourself in high school, get into your dream college, how to create your personal college admission strategy, how to choose extracurricular activities that will help you stand out, how to write memorable and compelling college essays and really, really strong personal statements, and then how to actually think about majors and what you want to do after college. And you will walk away with roadmaps for every part of this process. So the next slide will mention that the end of the course, you are going to walk away with a personal academic roadmap, all the different classes you need to be taking in throughout the 4 years, how you should think about weighted classes, how you should think about your strategy for weighted classes, how you should think about planning out your schedule. You will walk away with study strategies. You will walk away with a full extracurricular roadmap. We will actually help all the students pick activities, get internships, inshallah, and at least teach them how you go about getting internships. How do you develop a successful extracurricular profile such that you might start off as a member of an organization? How do we actually help you get to the point where you're a leader or potentially a president of an organization such that it shows extracurricular growth? You will walk away with a list of colleges to apply to. So your reach schools you're kind of, again, you're reaching for, your match schools, which are really your target schools, and your safety schools, backup schools based on your GPA and your interests. You will walk away with a list of majors based on your interests, your passions, and your goals. And we'll also, inshallah, ensure that you have a successful resume and LinkedIn profile ready to go so that you actually are able to apply to internships and apply to jobs kind of moving forward. So that's the overview of Dream College, and just a couple of FAQs here. And then inshallah, as you have questions, by the way, please about our entire presentation, please feel free to post them. If you're watching on Facebook, post them in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, post them in the chat. If you're watching here on Zoom, please post them in the chat, and we're gonna get to the questions just in about 1 or 2 minutes. So the course will be delivered. It's an 8-week live video course. It's going to be delivered in 90-minute sessions via Zoom. We're aiming to have about a small group setting, about 10 to 20 students per cohort, so we can really give everybody strong amounts of collective and then also individual attention. And we were trying to build like a supportive community environment, because students should know that you're not in this alone. We are in this together, and there are many other students going through the same challenges, and we can hopefully all help each other out. And if you feel like, okay, you're not in, this is really good for 8th graders, 9th graders, or 10th graders. If you're already past that point and you're a parent or a student who's in 11th grade, then it makes more sense for you to focus on college apps. And if you want, feel free to reach out. That's really a main area we focus on. We work one-on-one with students and families on navigating the entire actual college application. So we're happy to talk with you about that. Please feel free to email us at sadia@successcompany.co, and we can share more details. So hopefully that gives kind of a bit of an overview. And we are also offering, as we get into this course, could you please go to the next slide? Great. So we are going to be beginning this course at the beginning of April. Actually, we're right up on it. It's about a week and 2 days away. So we're actually, class is launching April 4th. Spots are filling up quickly. So if you are interested, please reach out, or please feel free to go ahead and get the course. We are offering a discount for anybody who attended this course, of $50 off of the price. The course itself has thousands of dollars of material that we've gathered over time. If we were to do this in one-on-one private sessions, it would be well over $5,000, $6,000 of instruction, but we are pricing it at $750 for 8 weeks of content that you are going to get, for all of the trackers, all of the handouts that you will get, all of the end results that you'll get, everything you'll take away, and hopefully then the motivation and the plan to have a successful high school and then ultimately college experience. So if you are interested, feel free to, you can go to successcompany.co/products. You can go ahead and check it out, inshallah, while you're doing this or afterwards. This discount code is valid for about 2 days up until the end of the weekend. And again, we're also committed very much to affordability and access. So if you can't afford it, don't even worry about it. Just reach out. We want to make sure that everybody who wants to benefit, everybody who wants to learn about this can do so. So feel free to reach out and we'll make it work. Feel free to text us directly at 925-212-4487. That's my direct line. Happy to respond to any questions you might have, any situations you might be going through. You can also schedule time with us for tomorrow or for Sunday if you go to this Calendly link. And I think, Sean, if you could just add some of these links into the Zoom, into the Facebook, into the YouTube, that would be awesome. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to Q&A. This has been, it's been awesome. We really, really appreciate all the help getting this set up. To the folks over at Civic, we'll go ahead and do some question and answer, and then we'll wrap up. So if anybody has questions, feel free again to post them in Zoom, YouTube, or Facebook, and we'll go ahead and get into questions. It can be general questions or about your specific situation as a student or as a parent. All right, so I'm not seeing. And if you are on Zoom, you can also, unmute yourself and ask. We're definitely more than welcome to do that. A typical question that we get for parents or for students who are early in high school is, when is too early and when is too late? And so this is an unfortunate answer, but it's in where we live in the West, in the US especially, it's never too early. Have people who start planning for college in like 6th grade. I'm not joking. They're thinking about SAT and their strategy and their activities and everything. And they have that intent in mind when they enroll in like piano in 6th grade, that it's to build my resume eventually for college. I don't personally advocate that exact level of intensity in this approach, but it's never too early. If you are in 8th grade or you are in 9th grade, you should be thinking about it. If you have not thought about it and you're in 10th or 11th, okay, you might be a little behind. It's okay. You can totally catch up. But that's just, it's definitely not too early ever to be thinking about this. So please go engage, whether it's with this course or this webinar that we've done or any other resource we have, or the multitude of resources available to you on the internet, or the different books about college admissions. Just read it. And so the more and more you can learn, the better it is. Somebody asked, which SAT practice books would you recommend? Great question. So there are a couple of big test prep companies that have kind of mastered the art of the practice book. I would go ahead and look at Kaplan or Princeton Review for SAT practice books. Those are the ones that I remember doing. They were very, very solid. There's also a company called Barron's. They're known to have a little bit more rigorous books. So their test questions are harder. So if you really do well in the Barron's books, you'll probably do actually really well on the overall exam. So Kaplan, Princeton Review, Barron's are like the big companies. There are also smaller niche companies that have developed that have interesting books. And there's also free resources like Khan Academy, which have their own kind of materials, not full books, but their own materials that they guide you with. So I would check out all of those. You can just get them on Amazon and pick one book and work through the whole book, and maybe supplement that with some video courses or something like that to assist. Great question. Other questions that folks might have? If you have any questions in relation to COVID and college admissions, or again, extracurricular activities or SAT, anything it is that we covered, or just, even if we didn't cover it, we'll do our best to answer. And if we can't answer it today, we'll go ahead and get back to you, inshallah, with an answer. All right, let's see. I'm not seeing anything here. Don't know if anybody had any questions on, I don't see anything. I'm on the Facebook. I don't see anything on Facebook. I don't know if there's any questions on the YouTube chat. We'll go ahead and just give it like another minute or so. Again, feel free to ask whatever it is. And if you have any other, follow-ups, feel free to message us. You can call or text me at this number, 925-212-4487. You can reach out to us via email, sadia@successcompany.co, and we'll be, more than happy to answer your specific questions. And if you have like a longer, more personal question, you want to learn specifically about how what we do, our courses, our coaching will facilitate that, you can also schedule some time at this link that's been posted, and we'll go ahead and get back to you, and we'll work together to help you out, inshallah. All right, I don't see anything. Sean, do you see any other questions? Anything else? Or Brother Sharif or anybody else? Anyone see any of the questions pop up? All right, well, I don't think we have anything else. Okay, well, if any other questions come in, we will do our best to get to them, but I'm not seeing anything. So thank you all so much for taking the time to attend. I know it's a Friday evening. Everybody's probably all zoomed out, all Zoom fatigued out. We really appreciate you all taking the time. It would be our honor to have a chance to work with you. So feel free to reach out if you are interested. And thank you so much to Sister Roxana at Civic, to Brother Sharif, and to the whole Civic team for all of your help. This was our first time working together. It's really been a great privilege. We very much appreciated it, and we hope that we'll have an opportunity to continue working together and hopefully continuing to benefit the community. And so I think with that, we can go ahead and end. Thank you, everybody, and Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.